All right, welcome back, boys. Having both of you have been previous guests on the old podcast, but just to quickly reintroduce yourselves, what are your damn names?
I'm David Kinney. I go widely by Mewed. I've been a tag along for Sungwon in various little things. I've guested on Press Buttons and Talk. I've gotten to do on some charity streams. Rick, you've also gotten to show up on those charity streams too.
And I am Rick Carnahan. I am also a Sungwon tag-along and a David tag-along. I've been on a variety of different streams. I did the podcast ones. That was a lot of fun. And David and I have done a lot of stuff together too. So you can find me on Twitter at @rip_carnage or on YouTube at such minutiae.
I do greatly encourage everybody to check out his YouTube channel because he does extremely cozy Let's Plays of classic point-and-click adventure games. I really like them.
Hell yeah.
I encourage everybody to check out jackbeloved.com because David's a great writer and his husband Max is an excellent illustrator. So take that.
That's also true. And also, I have no bias in terms of plugging your channel just because I get to guest on it. So
Indeed.
There's that.
I agree with both of those, and also if you guys haven't heard of ProZD, it's a really sweet YouTube channel, youtube.com/ProZD. Check that out.
I wonder what that means.
You'll never know. Now, so our background actually is Rick. I met you through David because you guys have been friends forever.
We have, yeah. David is one of my oldest friends.
How long ago at this point?
It's been closing on 2 decades now. Like, me and Rick met on the Quest for Glory Sierra Online forums, which a very adventure game focused friendship. And I've made it a endeavor of mine to drag Rick along into your friend group just because I want to consolidate my friends. I want to make sure that I've got them all in one convenient place.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what year would that have been, you think, when you guys met?
I distinctly remember seeing when David's AIM profile, he had his age in his profile, and I remember when it ticked over from 13 years old to 14 years old because I thought, oh man, he's close to my age. So had to be 2000.
Damn, okay. Damn. Yeah, and then I met David, I think, would that have been 2005, maybe? 2005?
That kind of ballpark.
Or actually, maybe even earlier than that. Maybe like, I want to say 2004. I think that was around my maybe freshman year of high school is when I met you. And at the time, I thought you were just this shining adult. And now I'm like, oh, what a dweeb. But, of course, we have been friends for a very long time. I was happy to have both of you on together for this episode. Now, let's dive into, we did ask Twitter for some topics, and David, we'll start with you. Pick one that, or it doesn't have to be one, but for one for now, one that you think would be a good topic conversation starter.
Our friend Miski at Twitter states, what's a prize piece of our video game collection? Because like both me and Rick, we've got some collectible bins, and someone I think that's fair to say that you two like to collect a thing or two.
So she specifically said video game stuff?
Different media.
Yeah, it's like, we like collecting stuff. I think for me, it's going to be video games flat out. You guys might have different answers.
But the question was video games, or was it anything?
Anything, and like just
anything. Cool. Okay. So David, what do you got? What are some of your most prized collectible items? Now,
in terms of what I've still got in my possession, I feel like that the stuff that I most highly covet is just like I've got like Gitaroo Man on PlayStation 2 and Silent Hill 2, both of which go for a pretty penny these days just because availability is very poor. Like if you want to get a hold of Silent Hill 2 these days, you've got to you get inferior ports or you have to emulate, and it's otherwise out of print.
How much is a copy now, like with case?
I don't know offhand, but it's going to be probably a couple $100.
It's a few hundred
depends
at
on
least.
the condition you want it in. I like horror games of that vintage tend to run very, very high. I really want to get a copy of Rule of Rose for PS2, but that's going to be more in like the $500 range, and it's like, oh, that's not happening.
Does that go down if it's out of box at all? I know you like the boxes, but
yeah, if it's something that comes with a disc or is like otherwise like the media is kind of at risk, I like it to be in the original case.
Got it. What's the price difference there? Like, let's say out of box versus in box.
I feel like that if you get just like a loose disc, that's probably going to be like half to a fifth of the price. But I still feel like that Rule of Rose especially is so like sought after that even just getting a loose disc is going to be insane. And like me and Rick have talked extensively before, but video game prices have gone up astronomically across, especially because of quarantine. So things have been real bad lately.
It's pretty crazy how expensive. Like I was just, for example, looking up like somebody sent in, I think it was Wii Shop points or something, which I guess I should use soon because it's gonna expire or something, or go away. But they sent in stuff because they wanted us to buy Mega Man Battle Network, and I was like, how much can like a Game Boy Advance cartridge without the box be? And it's fucking expensive. Mm-hmm. Like it's still like, it's crazy. Yeah, like I feel like a similar thing that's gone up crazy amounts is Pokemon cards, right?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a correlation there of just like nostalgia, right? Nostalgia driven. People are trapped inside. They want to collect stuff from their youth to make the feel good centers of their brain tingle, which I get. And so yeah, we're getting these. You know, I remember back, you could get most Game Boy Advance games out because I don't care about the cases for Game Boy Advance. I just need the cartridge, and those were relatively cheap. And now I'm like, God damn, they're fucking expensive. So for you, Silent Hill 2 and Gitaru Man are like your big goodies. Are those the most expensive things you have?
Arguably,
like value?
Some stuff I've had has gone down significantly in value because like back when me and Rick met, like the Sierra Online collection boxes were astronomically expensive, and now because you can get digital copies dirt cheap, you can get them a lot more reasonably. Although, Rick, you recently have been trying to get box copies of those games, and it's still been a battle.
It has. I want to point out one thing really quick. I looked up the most recent sold auctions for Rule of Rose, and case and manual only went for $100.
Case and manual only? Yes. No game?
Went for $100.
Holy shit. Okay. Fascinating. Is it a good... I mean, like, I know you guys are interested in it, but is it like a critically acclaimed game, or was it one of those like
it's more like
quirky good?
It's hidden gem good is what I hear. It's like it's not gonna be Silent Hill quality, but it's going to be like notable enough that if you're into the genre, you're gonna be like, I want to experience that, but no, you can't.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it's a horror game that came toward the end of the PlayStation 2's lifespan, so it didn't get a lot of attention. There weren't very many copies printed, so it kind of became, as David said, a hidden gem.
It's that's the sweet spot for low print runs, is right at the end of a system's lifespan.
Yeah. Rick, how about you? What are some of your prized gems?
So David mentioned that I've been trying to collect Sierra Online boxes. I grew up with these games. My mom and dad played them extensively, and my brother. So I used to like look through these boxes when I was a kid and look at the screenshots on the back and read the blurbs and everything. So like I have a very sentimental attachment with these, and unfortunately we lost most of the ones that I had growing up. So I kind of went on a little bit of a tear as far as trying to pick up as many of those boxes that I could remember that I could find. And in the process,
and I assume you have the games for these already.
Yes, I have the games both on collection discs and digitally. So these are 100% just showpieces. They're just things to put on my shelf.
Sure.
In the process of trying to collect them, I managed to snag a full set of Quest for Glory games, which, as David mentioned, is how I met him, and that's a series that is just extraordinarily vital to me as far as the relationships that I've built as a result of being a fan. So I have the whole set now, and I'm very proud of that in particular. I've also got a complete physical set of Dragon Quest games in one form or another.
Ooh,
so
that's cool. Okay. Now, your average... Or let's say your most valuable thing. Let's not say average. What's the most valuable thing in your possession, you think, in terms of collecting?
I would probably agree with David. It's probably Silent Hill 2. I looked up a few things. I looked up F-Zero GX recently, and that was going for a few $100s. I don't know if that's still the case now, but I have a few different GameCube games that just for whatever reason are going for super high prices these days. I was lucky enough to have scooped up most of the PlayStation 2 games that I ever cared to play back at the end of the PlayStation 2's lifespan. You know, I would troll all the local GameStops and try to pick up everything that I was interested in. So I managed to have a pretty complete collection of everything that I care about, and some of those things, like the Silent Hill games, are pretty sought after today. So
Nintendo in particular, their games like never go down, and in fact go up. Like it's pretty nuts how expensive, especially like GameCube games. The GameCube games in particular, I'm thinking of, they're just like what I want to say like 70, $80 on average. I'm not even that knowledgeable about how much the shit is now because I haven't gone game buying in a while, like for old games. But
yeah,
last I checked, even like let's say a couple years ago, like they were still like crazy expensive, which is going to be a problem for me because I want to eventually do all the Mario parties on ProZD Plays Games. I'm going to have to figure that out somehow. Either just fucking buy them and just bite the bullet or whatever. I don't know. Because I'm also like David in that I do like having the cases, even though all they do is really take up space.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they're all just showpieces, right? They're things you can put up on a shelf, and you just appreciate having them.
But things look great on shelves, and I love having things on shelves. I mean, to go into my collecting, I mean, I love collecting. So it used to be video games. That's definitely died down quite a bit. Figure collecting, I still have quite a few good figures. Probably one of my favorite like prize ones is I have from the manga 20th Century Boys, which David you've read, right?
Yeah.
I have Friend, the main villain from that, which is a gorgeous figure. Like. Comes with all these parts, its own special box, which usually I never keep boxes, but this one I had to keep because it was just so nice. I've been starting to collect the Final Fantasy IX figures. If you've seen those, they're just gorgeous, gorgeous figures.
Jessie just bought a Vivi plush that is up on our shelf right now that she just adores.
Nice. The only I've been lucky enough that with there's a site called Itaikuji that like we've been doing like they'll send me stuff and then I'll like unbox and it's kind of like a collaboration thing. So I've been able to get some good stuff from them, and then whenever I'm lucky enough to get to go to like Japan, that's when you can start finding stuff that you don't usually find, because I have found that online on American websites and in American conventions, you're going to see pretty much the same stuff. It's going to be nothing crazy, like crazy finds, because everyone has access to the same things. But when you go over to Japan, to like Nakano Broadway, which is it's a sort of like a big store with floors of like figures and all sorts of, otaku related merch. A lot of it's secondhand. The secondhand market of like I found a Miles Edgeworth figure there that I'd never seen before. I found you find really cool, especially the stuff that it's like, it'd be way too expensive to ship this. Like tinier stuff, you can find hidden gems. So that's something I collect.
I'm going to mention that you also you mentioned collecting Pokemon cards, and I feel like you got into that at the optimal time before it completely exploded.
Yes, I was about to go into that. Like, I have a complete set of basic to Neo Revelations, which is quite a lot of cards, and I was fortunate enough to be buying them when they were relatively like reasonable price, like not so bad. Now it's insane. Like I was with a couple friends, we stopped by like a card / game shop, and it's like something I paid maybe I would maybe even, I don't know, like $5 for a foil. We're talking like $80 a foil now. Like we're talking like 100, it can go up to 200. Like, it has exploded in popularity. I think because of YouTubers like the Paul brothers. Thanks, guys. But I mean, you can't just blame them. Like, it is something that has surged in popularity. So I imagine the cards I have like they probably could go for a pretty decent price. Like, they're not all of them are in perfect condition. I didn't care about that. I just cared about having them. But yeah, I did go out of my way to get a full set of everything I grew up with and decided to cut off there. Have all the Animal Crossing cards as well. I mean, something as silly as like when David visited, we found these Mario coins in Wonder Balls, and because our friend Elvis, who's been on the podcast, got some for him, and then we were like, oh my god, like, these Wonder Balls, or they were Wonder Balls, right?
Yeah, and like we went trawling every single like Kmart and like convenience store we could, just trying to find more of them after we found those coins.
Because we were like, these coins are really good quality, they're really cool, and there's like 16 of them, and we just went, searching through shops to buy as many as we could, opening them up, and then I think that Christmas, it was like, we were just giving each other like packs and packs of these Wonder Balls, and I think now we all have full sets, right?
Yeah, I do anyway.
I do.
I'm pretty sure.
And that's all that matters. Is that you? I also have a full set. Yeah, so that and I mean, not to mention, the big one now is board game collecting. For me, board games is a big passion, and but I would hesitate to call it so far as collecting, because I do call a lot. Like, even like if I had infinite room, and I know people, like I have friends who have like seriously like hundreds upon hundreds of games. I've got about maybe at most 200 total in my home, and that's not including unopened stuff. But I still keep it to that number. Whereas I know people who have like storage, like they rent a fucking warehouse for like their shit. It's like, that's intense. That's probably, I probably limit my collecting to what I can fit within my home.
Yeah.
I'm building on that. I was going to mention okay, what about collectibles that you've since parted with that maybe you regret? Because I've got a few items that I'm like, oh
yeah, what do you got?
So I lent a friend a copy of Ghost Trick for Nintendo DS, and it's gone now. I'm never seeing that again.
I lent a friend a copy of Silent Hill Shattered Memories, and that's never coming back.
I believe it was the same friend.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. But anyway, yeah, that game, how much is that game now?
I feel like that Ghost Trick now goes for a couple $100 at this point. And it's like that was a big hidden gem too. And it's like you can get it on iOS, but it's not the same thing. Also, like anytime I've had to move cross country, I've had to prune my collection just because stowing all that stuff is expensive. And I think that one that I had the biggest profit off of when I sold was a copy of Valkyria Profile on PS1.
Oh, okay.
I paid $30 for that from the Squaresoft's online store, and then I sold it for $80, and now it's more in the $200 range.
Man, one of these days maybe I'll just get you a copy. I just feel bad that you don't have that anymore. It's just sad.
I was just gonna say, let me ask you two a question about collecting. So,
yeah.
Ignoring the actual value of your collections, assuming that they were actually very valuable, regardless of if they are or not, are you the types of people who would ever consider selling off your collection to reinvest into a new collection?
I think that I'm entirely too sentimental because anytime I've had to prune my collection, the deciding factor was, am I going to play this again? And that criteria led me to get rid of a lot of JRPGs, stuff that, Valkyrie Profiles, this is valuable and I like the game. But once you've sunk 40, 80, 100 hours into a game, the odds of replaying that go down dramatically. And it's well, when I'm just thinking about what I'm actually going to go back to, it was primarily Nintendo games. And that's probably part of why Nintendo games retain their value, because people like going back to those.
Yeah. I don't really sell off my stuff. I usually just give away a lot of stuff to people, but yeah, I've definitely called stuff. I'll give away games, I've given away some manga I don't read anymore. And figures and stuff. Yeah, when we moved here, I definitely just kind of gave a bunch of figures to my family, and they just sold a bunch or whatever. So yeah,
I'm just imagining your mom getting a sexy Nami from One Piece or something. It's
no, that's pretty much what they pretty much just got a bunch of that shit, and then I believe they sold them at a garage sale for way below their value, and whatever. I'm sure some very happy nerds in that neighborhood had a field day, and I remember what it was like as a young nerd to find cool stuff at a garage sale for dirt cheap. So, whatever. Past the fucking happiness.
It's hard to get that high anymore, just because I feel that people are too aware of stuff's value, because you can just go on eBay and get a quote for something's rough value, and that means that a garage seller is maybe going to realize that they don't need to just sell this game for $5 or whatever.
Right. That was something I definitely missed that though, going to garage sales, because I grew up in the Midwest, and that was a huge thing. And my mom would go to a lot of garage sales because she was very thrifty, and so I would always tag along, and they would be it'd be funny, oh, this is a boring house, I'm gonna wait in the car. They got clothes and fucking nothing, But sometimes you could find like cool kids board, like when I was a kid, I mean like cool board games or like video games, that was the shit. Pokemon cards, although Pokemon cards, everyone was savvy about the value of Pokemon cards. Those you could never find for cheap when I was growing up. But cool like weird board games like Splat or like incomplete board games, I loved that shit. And I've talked about this before, but it's kind of, I'm like, well, how did I not like realize like later on that board games would be such a big part of me? Because as a kid I loved them so much. It was just a gap of I didn't know they existed, and now they're so prevalent, I think, in like even just Catan, right, is so prevalent that garage sales are probably pretty fucking sick now if you live in an area where there are any fucking adult nerds if they're selling shit.
Yeah, I mean these days you've got like designer board games that are sold off the shelf at Target, whereas 10 years ago they were a total niche that nobody really knew about mainstream. I'd heard the little things here and there, and I saw a couple of cool games here and there, like, oh, that'd be kind of fun, but I never realized just how big board gaming was, how expansive it was, until I got into them a few years ago.
Yeah, and it's the best. It's the best. I was gonna ask you guys a question. So going back to adventure games, I'm not someone who really plays them, and I'll be honest, not like super interested, right? Like I didn't grow up with them like you guys did. Mm-hmm. But if you had to make a list, let's say each of you 3 games or something that you think I should play, as like I think you, Sungwon, would like these 3, what would those titles be?
I think that like when we're approaching this, do we want to go like what are the most accessible adventure games out there?
You're doing it for me, like my tastes. My tastes.
That's tricky because I don't feel like that, you've got a pretty high barrier to getting into these games because they're like, you're a smart guy, but I think that you also like a lot more engagement than just like the abstract puzzle element. And what adventure games are puzzles and plots, and there's a lot of downtime in these games. And I feel like that's really probably what drags you out of like the experience, is that they can be very dry. If you're not really digging the dialogue or anything, then there's not a whole lot there for you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so David gave you a non-answer, but I have an actual answer for you.
Yeah. I would love to hear an actual answer.
Grim Fandango. I think you would love Grim Fandango.
Oh, yeah, I should play that. Okay, cool.
I've been recommending that one for the duration of my friendship with Sungwon.
Yeah,
and that has a Steam version or something, right? As an updated
version. They had an anniversary edition. That was a game that's like, okay, it peaked in terms of like rarity and scarcity, and then they released it digitally, and now people can play it, and that's good.
Cool.
Yeah, and
great answer. Grim Fandango.
The original had really shitty tank controls as well, because it was an early 3D game, but the remaster actually makes it point and click. It's far more accessible, and it looks really good. The dialogue is wonderful. There's tons of character, tons of charm. I think that game has enough personality to pull you through, even if you're not really into puzzles.
Cool. Okay. David, you have a real answer now, or
like my gut answer is going to be like, okay, well, Full Throttle is like it's a beautiful game, and it's also like the puzzles are relatively minimal, and it's very cinematic, so it's a very easy answer. But that's still in the territory of like, this is one you recommend easily for anybody. And I'm trying to think about what's specific
fine.
to
like,
you.
I get it. I'm a basic bitch within this genre. That's fine. I'm not saying like it has to be like super obscure. Like, that's okay. So Full Throttle, Grim Fandango, 2 more. Each of you.
Let's see.
Anything that comes to mind. Like my basis for adventure games is I played Freddy Fish, Spy Fox, which I loved those games. I love them to death. But very very like kid friendly ones. I'm trying to think what adventure games have I played?
Our friend Dave had you play the Neverhood, right?
That was fun. I did like that. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, the Neverhood's a very charming game as well. It's got some obtuse puzzles, but it's got a great style. Shitty creator, but great style.
Right. For me, what carried me through any of the frustrating puzzles was I had like a helpful, companion to bounce things off of. But I do love the style, the music, the humor. Yeah, that was fantastic. I really liked that one.
Another one that's probably I'm inclined to suggest is Curse of Monkey Islands, which That's another one where it's like it's very charming, it's very funny, and it's the visuals are fantastic, and you don't really need to play the preceding games to appreciate it. And there's an easy mode in it, so if you don't really like the puzzles, then you can get a reduced difficulty.
Okay. I guess, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, Ace Attorney are adventure games, right? In a sense.
Yeah, they're more in the Japanese tradition of the genre, kind of like tailing off of like, say, like Famicom Detective Club and what is it called? Porto something, the Porto Mystery on the NES. Like those games usually are very heavily dialogue driven. They're what kind of spawned a lot of visual novels. They're a very different feel, but they're still completely valid and have their fans. And
did either of you play the new release or the originals of the Famicom Detective Club games?
I want to play them pretty badly. It's just a backlog situation.
Yeah,
it looks
same.
Yeah, when they announced those, I was like, huh, that's kind of really cool. I do want to try those out, but okay. I have any other titles for me?
Yes, I have one more recommendation for you. Because I feel that Sierra is woefully underrepresented so far in our list of games that would interest you. I'm going to call a shot in the dark here and say that you would enjoy the Gabriel Knight games.
Okay.
I would hesitate there. Well, Gabriel Knights is like a supernatural thriller franchise. It's like you are this writer type and you're in Louisiana and you are uncovering a lot of mysteries about your heritage and also running into supernatural forces. There's a lot of genre pieces nowadays that kind of fill that niche, but it's a lot more adult and mature than a lot of contemporary adventure games, and it had excellent atmosphere. My biggest caveat with like the Gabriel Knight series is I'm just salty that like they left the third game ended on a big cliffhanger and we're never getting a fourth game.
Yeah, but what I think would appeal to you, Sungwon, would be the amount of effort and research that went into kind of exploring the supernatural histories of these games. The first game is based around voodoo. The second one is based around werewolves in Germany, and the third one is based around vampires. But they go really deep into a lot of the stuff about the myths, and there's a lot of very well researched information and detail in them, and some excellent writing as well. So once again, if I think of something that could carry you through maybe a drier presentation, it would be something with a lot of interest and detail and intrigue.
Okay, cool. It's not like I'm like, oh man, I never want to play these games or anything, but like, you know, it's just something I didn't grow up with, so I never it wasn't part of my DNA. There was a game that I did a voice for. I don't know if either of you played it, but apparently it was quite good. Did either of you play Unavowed?
Unavowed. I don't think I've played that one.
That is on my personal list to play.
Gotcha. I got to do a character in that, and I heard it was apparently very, very well received. Like people, so I was wondering if you guys had experienced that one. But okay. Now this is kind of an interesting sort of topic of like, okay, so for example, adventure games is something I'm not super knowledgeable about that you two are recommending. Maybe we can kind of do it for each of us. Like for Rick, what's something that like David and I are invested in that Rick is not, and we could be like, what would Rick like in this genre?
I mean, historically, I feel like what this is just like trying to get Rick to appreciate anime, which is an uphill battle.
I don't think it's an uphill battle. I think it depends on what you recommend.
Rick, counterpoint.
Counterpoint.
What's your Rick? What's your counterpoint?
Well, first off, Rick, thanks for answering the question.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say was anime. It's an uphill battle because I'm just not a fan of animation in general. It's not that I don't like it. It's not that I have a problem with it. I've just never really latched onto it. So finding an anime for me is a matter of finding something that can kind of transcend the medium and get my interest despite the style.
I think that like what historically we've had the best luck with was like stuff that's usually like, oh, this is just better. Like the top 1% of anime, like Cowboy Bebop, I think you appreciated. I think.
Did you watch Cowboy Bebop?
I've watched some of Cowboy Bebop.
What did you think?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what I saw. Back when I was in high school, all of my friends were into the edgier adult anime like Vampire Hunter D and Hellsing. So,
Oh yeah,
I've got familiarity with those. And Lupin the Third, I think, was another favorite of my friends. But nothing that I ever really got into.
I think I think it's a matter of just picking the right ones, right? Because especially if it's just animation in general. But we'll stick with anime because I think anime is just more specific. Cowboy Bebop is an easy answer, and I do think you should go through it at some point if you're interested. But that's like the easy answer. That's the one that everyone picks for like non-anime fans. One that I think you would really like is Monster. Have you heard about this one? Have I told you about this one already?
You have not. I've heard of it, but I know nothing of it.
Okay. So Monster is best described as like pure just like psychological drama where it takes place in Germany, where I'll just give you the TLDR of the premise, where there's a Japanese doctor who is forced to make a decision between helping, it's like the mayor or something, some important official like comes in for surgery. But this little boy came in for surgery, I think first, and then like the hospital's, you gotta do the official because he's more important. But he's like, I gotta save this kid. So he saves the kid, the other guy dies, and he becomes disgraced. But then the kid grows up to become a serial killer who is part of like this neo-Nazi like conspiracy, like, and he finds out that like this kid's background, and there's just this giant like conspiracy behind this kid. And so he's like, okay, because I saved this kid and he's causing so much pain, I'm going to kill him. And it's him trying to track him down.
That's a really good premise.
It is an excellent story. If some people have the problem with some anime of like, oh, it's like too
kooky, it's too weird.
The stereotype of anime, I think, is it's too childish, it's too silly, it's too zany, it's not grounded enough. But Monster is the complete opposite. It is like pure, like if this was just like a live action HBO drama, like it wouldn't be that hard. I mean, there was an attempt. I think Guillermo del Toro wanted to adapt it, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But excellent show.
This is a very good recommendation for Rick, I think, just because like I think that he would appreciate Monster more than I did, because like Monster has big prestige television energy, and it is super grounded and real, as opposed to there's not a single giant robot. There's no psychic powers.
I know for you and your husband, sometimes it's like, oh, this one's it's just not exciting enough, and I'm like,
I think that it's more so like both me and Max have a harder time being sold on slice of life, which you enjoy those quite thoroughly.
Yes.
And for me, it's like, okay, I need it to be a little bit more intense, usually. But
the Monster's pretty intense.
I did enjoy Monster. Usually my hang up was just that I wanted it to be a bit more focused, but I think that in terms of just like Urasawa does amazing work just in terms of his stuff. And it's just that
how do you feel about comics, Rick? Do you like comics or manga or anything like that?
No, I've never really gotten into those either.
Gotcha. I was going to say, because 20th Century Boys, which I mentioned earlier, there's that. There's Pluto. He's an amazing mangaka, and again, just really fantastic storytelling. But Monster, I'm like, maybe I should like arrange a viewing, because Dave, I know, would love to rewatch it. Rick, I'm sure, especially with a group, it would also be really fun to kind of go through it, because it's a really great suspense show, really, in terms of like just rich character writing. And so that's one that comes to mind for you. I think you would definitely get a kick out of it, and I think at some point in our friendship I will make you watch it at some point. But I think because I think you will enjoy it, I think you will actually quite get a big kick out of it.
I'm totally down for a group viewing. That sounds like a lot of fun. I've not tried to stay away from anime. I would love to get into it and appreciate it. I guess I've just never found the right group. Sometimes you have to have the right group of friends who are into something to get you into it as well.
Yeah.
So
and
I think
for me, it's like how I feel about adventure games, right? I'm not ugh, adventure games. I'm just like, yeah, adventure games. Okay. Yeah, they seem cool, but I'm not like, I'm not going on my way.
One of the first times I visited Rick, I talked him into getting a copy of Excel Saga, and I think that was the wrong type of anime to try and introduce him with.
No, and I mean, I know you love Excel Saga, but that show is aged so poorly. Like,
it's also just extremely so off the wall that like it's not very real at all.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm trying to think of a couple others for you. I think Monster's the easy answer. Like, absolutely, I think you would enjoy that.
I may be showing my ass here because this may be a manga and not an anime, but what about Berserk? I've heard that has very big Dark Souls energy.
Interesting.
Like, what I've kind of heard from you with Berserk is that there's a period where you got to get past the grimdark. You got to push through the grimdark to actually get to the meaty stuff.
Yeah, Berserk is one of those things where I deeply respect Berserk. Oh well, if we're talking about like, okay, let me do my Berserk spiel first. I think it's very good. I think it's very important. I do think it's a little too grimdark for my tastes. There is a lot of sexual assault in it, and it's not done. It's not done in a way that's like, what I think makes Berserk work, despite the heavy grimdark. Game of Thrones has a similar thing, right? A lot of like sexual violence and whatever, but Berserk has at its core a deep empathy for for example, the main character. This is like a kind of a spoiler, I guess, but it's a slight spoiler. It's a little early on, but he is a victim of sexual assault as a youth, and it's something that is like very like a big part of his motive, like his character, and and it's not done in a way necessarily that's like just for shock value. Like, I think what really separates Berserk, I think, from other just sort of shock grim dark stuff is that it cares about its characters. So I would not recommend Berserk. I think Berserk is a little too I think it's good, very good, and the art is incredible, but it's kind of like maybe too much. What I would actually recommend instead is Vinland Saga, which does have an anime, actually, and the anime is good. The manga is the best version, but if you're not a big reader, like I know, like our friend Wilco doesn't really read manga, but he'll watch anime. Vinland Saga is a very well done, mature, historical anime about Vikings, and it's like very good characters. Like I would almost say like Berserk. Because of Berserk, we can get stuff like Vinland Saga, which is still very gritty and very realistic, but is also deeply empathetic.
I see.
And like at its core, like it's easy to look at stuff like Berserk or Vinland Saga and be like, oh, it's so violent and it's so whatever, like edgy, but it's not really about that. What it is at its core is about like I don't want to go into too much detail because it's pretty plot relevant, but it is about the main characters who being empathetic and wanting to like do good and like change themselves. So that's actually another one that I think would be it would be a very good fit for you, is Vinland Saga.
Okay, that's something that's very important to me, is that, if you're going to depict something horrible, then you need to make sure that the soul of the piece is in the right place. I don't want to see sexual assault and just have it be brushed aside as a fact of life and never addressed. I don't want to see violence against marginalized groups for no reason. If you're going to show me those things, give me more than shock value. Give me an examination.
Right. And like, I mean, I'm like, man, maybe like RIC anime lessons, like that'd be kind of like a fun, like they just start showing RIC, like, because I think David, it's fair to say, I think I would be a very good anime guide, right? To getting him to like, what would Rick like? Let's
I think that usually someone you're very good at like trying to do some detective work in terms of like what somebody's actually going to be into. Whereas with me, I'm more probably inclined to be like, oh, Rick should watch Evangelion. Easy.
No,
Not
right away. Anyway,
I did try that.
Yeah.
Didn't
How'd
work.
that go?
It didn't.
Yeah. Right. No. And I respect Evangelion, but that's not the right go about it. Yeah, I'd say those are two titles that jump out to me, and also kind of on the more extreme, but because like the art style can be hard for people, but Kaiji. I think Kaiji would be something that you might...
I can agree with that. I think that Kaiji is very relatable and it's very high stakes, but it is grounded. It's like a real person having to deal with like gambling situations. There's a death game aspect of it too, but I think that it's a series that's extremely hard to put down.
It's very, very gripping. The art style is very unique. Like, if you Google Kaiji, Kaiji, you'll see, you're like, oh, what? Why does it look like that? It's because the manga looks like that. Because he just draws things that way. But it's like, I love the art style anyway, but at its core, it's a gripping, gambling-based psychological drama with really high tension. Like, it's pretty hard to put down once it starts going. Like, it's really excellent. So
very interesting.
I would say those are three titles I think that would be a good Rick starter pack. Now, David, Rick, what's something that you and I are into that David's either ambivalent or not as into?
Board games.
There's one thing I can think. I was gonna say board games, right? Okay, so 3 board. I mean, but David, so. You like board games, though.
I do like board games. My issue is more so that, like, I don't have local people who like to play board games with me. Mm-hmm. Like, if I had a group, I probably would have invested much more, maybe comparable to you guys. But my opportunities to play board games is when I'm visiting you people.
But, so let me ask you this. Like, in terms of enjoyment level of when you're playing them, and please don't answer this in the typical wishy-washy way, but like, no, it's tolerable. No, I'm actually asking, like, like, how much do you enjoy playing board game? Like, if, let's say you had access to, like, what me and Rick have, just like a regular gaming group, would you play them as often? Or do you think you'd be like, not that much, but still really like them? On a scale of 1 to 10. 10 is like me and Rick. 1 is like
I probably think
yuck.
I'd be like in the 8 territory. Like, I'm not as crazy into it as you all, or even like say compared to other ProZD Powell Wilco, but I do really enjoy them. And I think that probably the biggest hang up is that I'm not like half as competitive as some of you guys. I like stuff that's very narratively, very thematically focused, and usually that has a lot of cooperative elements.
Gotcha.
You know, I just want to share a quick anecdote to that point, because I've always considered myself to be not a very competitive player. Most of the board games that I've played in person with my friends tend to be on the softer side or the lighter side, or are just cooperative games. But I have played so many cutthroat competitive games with you lot over quarantine that when I did get together with friends recently to play board games, they were kind of surprised that I was so fucking mean in the game.
You've been turned into a shark.
Yes. That's what I want. I want more sharks. Now, okay, Rick, I think this will be easy. You and I, let's alternate. What would be games that David would enjoy that he hasn't played already? I think, first off, pretty easy answer. Gloomhaven, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's basically as close. It's pretty similar to D&D. Pretty rich universe. I don't think the storytelling is amazing, but it's pretty immersive. You will, and especially in a group cooperative setting, I think you would really dig into like building your character, seeing where it goes, like, oh, like what happens in this adventure, that sort of thing. So that's my first answer. How about you, Rick?
This might be a little stereotypical of me, because in my last episode I placed it as my number 1 game, but this would be Aeon's End. I think that he would love Aeon's End.
Ooh, Aeon's End's great. Because, David, you've enjoyed Marvel Legendary, right?
I enjoyed that, yeah. Like, my probably biggest hang up with Marvel Legendary is just that I just don't care about the Marvel universe, but the
Yeah.
gameplay mechanics are excellent.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. I don't really care about comics, but I love the gameplay. So if you love the gameplay of the deck building, Aeon's End is like, yeah, it's fantastic.
What I think would resonate with David about Aeon's End is that it also has that Dark Souls energy of struggling to defeat a giant boss and having to basically use all of your resources very wisely in order to overcome the challenge. And I think that he would appreciate both the puzzle aspect of it and the thematic aspect.
Have you dug into the not just Legacy, but also like the new like expedition stuff they're doing in that?
Yes, I have. And
so you've played
like
everything?
It. Yes, I own a complete set of Aeon's End, and I'm eagerly anticipating. By the time that this podcast comes out, it'll probably be out, but the next wave of Aeon's End content should be here soon. So,
wait, shit, what's the new wave?
Legacy of Gravehold.
Legacy of Gravehold. Did I back this? Let me see. Now I'm like, shit, did I not back the latest? Oh, no, I backed it. Okay.
Yeah, I was pretty sure you did, because I think that I told you about it on Twitter, and you had said that you'd already gotten it. But yeah, I will always kickstart Aeon's End content.
Rick, whenever a new one comes out, please just message me. Just say, like, I do not want to miss out on it one. And I like had a make, like, because I but recently finished Outcasts, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wait, is there a new one that I didn't back? I had a mini heart attack. But yeah, the expedition stuff, especially, like, the story's fun. There's a very rich universe. Zaxos is an asshole. It's great. It's great.
That motherfucker just does not go away.
Yeah. Second game I'll recommend to you, David, is This War of Mine. Have you played that one?
I have not.
David, have you played the video game This War of Mine?
It rings a bell. I don't think I've played it.
This War of Mine is a very, very good adaptation of a video game called This War of Mine, and it's basically you are citizens in a war-ridden city, and it's based off. I don't want to get this wrong. Let me find the exact conflict. It is based off of because it's basically a very realistic look at what it's like to be a civilian in a civil war sort of like conflict. It was inspired by the Siege of Sarajevo in the early 90s, and like the poor living conditions, the wartime atrocities that Bosnian civilians endured. And so it's this game where, like, it's not even necessarily like supposed to be like fair. Like we did, I think, win the game, quote unquote, but it's really about just like experiencing it. Of like, you just have to survive. It's like, okay, like you have to go out. You're inside this shelter, and it's like we have to go out, and it's like choose your own adventure, kind of like a deck. Like random events will happen, and it's like, oh, you encounter a guy over there, and it's like, do you ask them for help? You have no idea if they're gonna like attack you or whatever. And it's not played for like laughs or like, haha, this is so crazy. It's like, it's real. It's like, this is shit that people had to go through. And you know, when your characters die, you really feel it. You're like, fuck, like I know, but it can just happen, you know, just like, oh, a one-time bad incident. So it sounds like it'd be, you know, that doesn't sound fun, but it was very engrossing. And I think I saw a Board Game Geek thread about someone who actually, I'm seeing it right now. Someone reviewed it as a survivor of that siege.
Oh, wow.
And was like, this was a very good representation of what it was like. Like, you know, there were night raids. There were, you know, we had to scavenge. Like, this was a real thing. Like, the game and the board game, I think at its core, it's like, we want to show you what it was like. And I think on that goal, huge success. I think the mechanics are also quite good, but it's, a very rich, very, I think, important game, I would even say, like, to experience. So That's my second option. How about you, Rick? What would you suggest?
That's a great recommendation, and I think you've even gotten me interested in that, so I might have to seek that out.
It's very, very good.
So for my second pick, I'm trying to think of something that David specifically would enjoy without just running off my favorite board games. How do you feel about Letters from Whitechapel for David?
Interesting. I think he would enjoy it. I don't know how much it'd be like a smash hit, though. But that's also colored by, like, I'm not that into Whitechapel. Because for me, have you played Spectre Ops?
No, I haven't.
Ooh, okay, man. This is evolving into board game talk, but I don't care. Rick, you will. I think you will. I think actually both of you, but Rick, you will love Spectre Ops. Spectre Ops is by Emerson Matsuuchi, who's a great designer, and it was originally designed as a Metal Gear game. It was supposed to be a Metal Gear game, and in fact, unfortunately, that same designer did get the rights to Metal Gear, and it was in production, and then they canceled it.
I know.
Like,
oh my god.
yeah, but yeah. Anyway, but if you want to experience basically like I'm not saying predecessor because I don't know how similar the game mechanics were, but Spectre Ops is essentially one player is a secret agent. It's a sci-fi game, and it's hidden movement, just like Whitechapel. Like, they have their own sheet, and they're marking their positions on the board on a grid. Meanwhile, the rest of you, there's like 3 or 4 other. They're all these like powerful alien monsters with different powers. So one guy's like, I'm the sniper. Like, I can see down the hallways. One guy's like, I'm the brain guy. I can control the tank without being in the tank. And you are all hunting down one guy. It is like 3-on-1, and you're all just like, where's that fucking asshole? You know, and it's like, and because, you know, if you ever catch them, they have to reveal themselves, and then it becomes like, kill them, like, you know, but the agent has really cool powers that they're exclusive to them. Each of you have like powers you have, because the agent has to go around the board and complete different objectives before they can escape. It's like, okay, I got to go to the northwest sector, the northeast sector, and the southwest sector, trigger these things, and then I can run away from one of 2 exits. So it becomes this thing of 3 of you are going, okay, do you think he went that way? He's got to go that way. So you think he's actually going that way now? All right, you go down that way. I'll go this way. I'll check this hallway.
What was that noise?
Yeah. It's really, really good. So I would say either one would be interesting. And yeah, I think it's a good suggestion. And I also would, you know, I should play more Whitechapel, you know, to get a better feel for it. But it did remind me of going like, I kind of like Spectre Ops a little better, but they're both good games.
See, I was just thinking a hidden movement game in general, because I know how much David enjoys puzzles and working things out logically, and there's a lot of deduction and a lot of deliberation that is involved if you're one of the people chasing the hidden mover. So I feel that would be something within David's wheelhouse, but Spectre Ops definitely sounds like a better fit.
My third choice is either, I think it's kind of like a 2 answers, but anything in this universe. The Arkham Horror card game, but probably the easier pick is Mansions of Madness. Have you played either, Rick?
Oh yes, I haven't played the card game, but I own Mansions of Madness and a few waves of expansions. Very, very, very good game.
I think David would love. I'm gonna say Mansions of Madness because it's more accessible.
I agree.
It's basically you're going around, and the first one is a mansion, but there's like different like, you know, maps. And it's app driven, so it's as close to a video game as a board game can get. Of like, you talk to NPCs, like you literally like click on it in the app, and they have dialogue, and you love the Eldritch Arkham shit, that Cthulhu ass shit. So I feel like that's a perfect fit of like, you love that theme, right? Am I wrong on this? You like that theme?
I enjoy like the Call of Cthulhu mythos and everything. I think that it's become a little bit more passé just because the nerd culture has really dug into it.
True.
But it's still a lot of fun.
As someone who doesn't usually give a shit about it, I think this game does a great job of it, and it really is thematic. You know, there's narration and, you know, all this, you know, it's close. It's kind of like an adventure game. It's like you're going around like, oh, open that cabinet. What's inside? Oh, okay. What's this do? Oh, we got to open this door somehow. Like, which room is it?
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, it's it's fantastic.
Mansions
so
of Madness is the best representation of Lovecraft in board gaming, I think, because like I've played all the other Arkham games, so Elder Sign, Arkham Horror, what was it, second edition and third edition? Third edition's the new one, and Eldritch Horror. And I think that I even took Eldritch Horror with me to visit David once, and we played it, and I recall you enjoying it. But as far as
it was fun. It was also one of those games where you basically have to spend an hour just setting it up.
Well, unfortunately, but Mansions of Madness captures the feel best because it's a very personalized horror. You're taking one person through various rooms and experiencing things firsthand, whereas the others are more broad, pulpy, exploration based in a city or the world. So I think Mansions is a great recommendation.
What would your last recommendation be, Rick?
My last one, I think, would be Escape the Dark Castle.
Ooh, yeah, that's a great choice.
I do like Dark Castles and Escape.
Yeah.
Escape the Dark Castle is it's loaded with old-fashioned AD&D style art. You essentially assemble a deck, quote unquote, of rooms that you go through as you're attempting to escape this dungeon, and along the way you're encountering all of the classic D&D staples. You know, a skeleton jumps out of a treasure chest kind of thing, or were-rats, or whatever it might be. It's a dice-based game. So there's a lot of luck involved, but it's very atmospheric. It's got a great feel of you, again, up against the odds, trying to get through this thing, and you know there's a boss waiting for you at the end of it, and you're probably going to die, but let's see how horribly you die.
Yeah. It's one of those where you want to win, but you don't care if you, like, at the end it's like, you're like, man, that was fun. Like, even if we died like a horrible, unavoidable lava death or something, it's like, that was really fun. Have you tried Dark Sector?
I have not. I kind of read about it, and it seemed like it was just a re-implementation. I'm not sure if there's enough there to get me to play it.
I enjoyed it. I think I like the original better because of its purity. There are some interesting mechanics that it adds, so if I'm like, okay, if you like wanted more, I do think Dark Sector is worth checking out, but I do think I like the original game better. But and the theme is, I think, I don't care about sci-fi that much, so I like the sort of dungeon theme of the original. But yeah, I think those are some good ones to recommend, and for listeners as well. And looking forward to the next time the three of us get to be at an actual table at some point. You know, we should go hard, and we should play some games.
It's going to be so
I think that I want to bring things full circle a little bit by, like, you guys mentioned Kickstarter a while back, and I'm like thinking about, how the physicality of board games and how they go out of print pretty easily, and the FOMO of, like, say you want to play this game but you can't get a hold of it, and the price inflating. I think that maybe it's a little better right now, because I expect that, given that board games are big right now, there's been a lot of reprintings. But is there anything that's like, you want to play this, but it's just getting a hold of it is a big problem?
That is a good question. Yes, let me think. One that was one of those, but I did manage to borrow it. I haven't played it yet. Is Seventh Continent. Do you know that one, Rick?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a massive, like, you're exploring an island or something, and like it's probably like a really enriching experience. It's like you can save your game, and it's like, not 1,000 hours, but hundreds of hours if you could like go through the whole thing. Yeah, that was one, but I did get it, not to keep, but to borrow.
One for me would be Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yes, I do want to play that. I have a couple friends who have it, so that one is within access of me. But yeah, you basically can't buy that one. They are with the board game industry, though, they're constantly either reprinting or re-implementing, so that one's becoming unfathomable. Which you knew about this, Rick, right? Weren't we just talking about this?
Yeah, like on the Wilco podcast, you guys talked about this.
Unfathomable? We did?
No, I'm talking about the Battlestar Galactica is what I'm referring to.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, so Unfathomable is like a submarine or steamship or some kind of version of it with like Cthulhu, like that, I think, Fantasy Flight.
Because I thought you were saying that the idea of getting Battlestar Galactica was unfathomable, like inconceivable.
No, the game is called Unfathomable. Let's see. Yeah, I think those are ones that come to mind for me. Like, I'm usually not a big Kickstarter guy. It has to be something that like I'm already a fan of. Like Aeon's End, I will back every time, like no matter what.
Right.
Because it's a game that's so easy. Well, getting harder because there's just so many cards to fit in. But it's something you can just expansions. You can just slide them in. You can just randomize it, slide new stuff in, and just play it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or play through all the new shit, and then it's easily like it won't just sit there. Like my thing with like. I used to get expansions for some games, but then it was like a thing of like, do I want to pull this expansion out again? I don't feel like it. I don't feel like teaching the expansion on top of things. I prefer expansion stuff where it doesn't change the base game. It just gives you variety.
Right.
Just more cards, more things to kill. That's it. The core game is still the same. That's the best type of expansions for me.
I love the small box expansions of Eldritch Horror for that reason, because all they really add is more cards that you can pull with new stories on them, and maybe a few new items, and maybe a couple new monsters. Nothing crazy, but enough to add more variety and spice to the game. Those are the best kinds of expansions to me.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
I was just going to follow up on the whole like availability thing because I don't know. With at least like video games, you can always resort to piracy, but unless a game actually exists in some sort of digital form, you can't. If a game becomes truly lost, you can't really salvage a board game in the same way unless it actually gets a proper reprinting.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, and some would even argue that like a video game version isn't exactly what you want anyway. I think Board Game Arena is the closest. No, that's not true. Tabletop Simulator is also quite good. Like. I do count, like, if I play a game on Board Game Arena, I do count it as if I've played the game, because I think, like, in some app versions of games, sometimes it's, like, a little bit different, right? But with Board Game Arena and Tabletop Simulator, you are basically playing the same thing. You're just not moving the pieces. But
or in the case of Tabletop Simulator, you are moving the pieces.
Yeah, you are literally moving the pieces. And then that kind of brings up an interesting thing of like recently, there have been games where I'm like, I have this on Board Game Arena, and I kind of like it better on there because it does all the busy work. Like, Rick, we played Targi, right?
Yes.
And Targi is an excellent game, and I recently played it in person, and it's still great. But I'm like, the game does this. The Board Game Arena automated version is I kind of don't need the physical anymore. Like, I'm giving it away. Like, I think if I really want to play it, it's on that website, and it will do all the setup and everything instantly, and it doesn't feel like I'm missing anything. Games that I will keep are like if the components are really nice, or if there's something about the being in person that feels like a different thing. You know what I mean? Like. Targi, I don't think I'm missing out on anything by playing like the online version of it. Whereas something like even Perudo is like wildly different in person. Very fun in both versions for different reasons, but there's a reason to keep, let's say, Perudo for me. But Targi, I'm like, I can just play this online. But
I feel like Twilight Struggle will be one of those games because I have not played that in person yet, aside from like a couple of rounds to learn it once. So, but I've played a lot of it digitally. So I would love to see how that feels to actually be sitting at a table across from somebody as you're playing this Cold War game of chess.
It's pretty cool. I do own it, and I did play it. I've only played it physically, and that one is fun to have like this map between you, but. I don't know if it goes on Board Game Arena. I'm like, do I need to keep it? No, it's tough, especially because it's a two-player game that's super long. It's like, oof, it's
with the board games,
tough.
You have to do a lot more aggressive pruning just because they take up so much physical space.
Right.
So, like for you, is it like does a game have to be at least a 9 or just to be a full 10 for you to keep it long term?
That's not even what it is. Well, I would say yes, it probably have to be at least a 9 or a 10 to keep it. But really, it goes down to your rule of like, am I going to play this again? Like, not just is this a good game, but am I going to play it again? Like, I've given away stuff that people, hardcore board gamers listening to this would probably gasp. Like I gave away Star Wars Rebellion, and it's a great game. It's a great game. Like, if I had the time, I would love to play it over and over again, but I know I'm not going to be able to play it. It's like a massive 5-hour one-on-one Star Wars game. It's just, I know it will almost never hit the table. So I eventually, and it's so big where I'm like, okay. Especially like 2-player games are so hard to, you have to be like, I want to play this all the time. Otherwise it's not going to be worth it to me.
Right.
Because I'm almost never going to have, usually people, when I have a board game night, it's like 4 people. So 2-player games are going to be like, if people are like, if some people go home and there's like 2 of us left, then you pull out the 2, and it's not like, okay, well, we've played for 5 hours, but do you want to play this 5-hour Star Wars game now? It's like, no, like I just can't think of any time. It's like one of those sort of like, event games of, okay, today we're going to play Star Wars Rebellion. Like, and I'm trying to think of, are there any 2-player big games? Like, I still have Twilight Struggle because it's not that big of a box. That's also in its favor of like, it's a pretty skinny box. So, but I'm like, will it stick around forever? I'm like, ooh, maybe not, unless it just manages, like, I don't know, it's like almost like a Toy Story thing of like, just gotta stay inside the shelf so that I don't get sold, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's tiny box size might keep it around for longer than it needs to be because it's just so easy to fit. Whereas Rebellion is huge. It's like if we're talking about like Cal-X cubes, it's almost like more than half of a Cal-X cube.
Good
I'm like,
Lord.
I cannot fit this. Like, Mansions of Madness is about that size, but I will definitely play that game over and over again. Like, it is staying around because it is easy to teach and fun and like, yeah. So
I feel like once you play
the
the digital version of Twilight Struggle, if you ever do, you'll probably ditch the physical copy. There's so much that it does because Twilight Struggle also has a lot of really detailed systems as far as like comparing dice rolls whenever you're trying to stage a coup or take over territory, and the app just gives you percentages. It makes it so easy. It does all the admin for you. So while I'd like to play Twilight Struggle in person just for the in-person experience, I think that I'm always gonna prefer the digital version. It just keeps things moving.
Yeah, I think that absolutely makes sense. Like one game I played recently that I will keep was Lost City of Arnak, which
that's a great game.
Or Lost Ruins of Arnak,
right?
Which I played the Board Game Arena version first, and I played it in person semi-recently, and it's a fantastic game either way. Mm-hmm. But the pieces are so nice, right? The little tablets, like the everything, and the board and everything. It looks great. The pieces are great. And it's something that I will definitely pull out for like, a 4-person, experience. So that's an easy keep. Like, even though I think the Board Game Arena version is just as good. One that I actually didn't keep, but also because I kind of cooled off on the game was, I think it's a great game, but Abyss. I don't know if you've played that one.
I haven't.
It's very good. But I played it on Arena first, and I enjoyed it, and I played it in person. And I was like, I don't think I need to keep it. Like, the pieces are nice, art's good, but if I want to play this again, it's on Arena. And the thing is, and again, whenever we talk about Arena, I feel like I'm like being sponsored, and I wish I was, but like they keep adding so many games, especially even like good fucking games. I'm like, dude, this is kind of amazing. Like, I'm like, it's helping me kind of get rid of stuff because I'm like, well, I technically, quote unquote, have it on Board Game Arena, right? Like, I can play this, and I feel like I'm not missing out. So yeah, that's always been that's been a big boon. Now, Board Game Arena may not be around forever, right? I think Asmodee's been very good so far about keeping it pure, but who knows, right? Maybe one day Asmodee will scrap it for parts or make it a bastard version of itself. Yeah. But where it is now, if as it is, it's still a great collection. Like, now I totally get. I never used to get people who are like, yeah, I do PlayStation's, what is it? The PlayStation Plus, where you don't own the games, but you have access to all the games. Okay.
I'm way too skittish with those online services because I want to be able to access something independently of a pay for service. Like I think, yeah, like Rick, you were saying, I think that they do have it where you do get to keep them to your account. But I most often will prefer a physical copy. But there's also like the issue with like PlayStation 4 where it's like if your battery is out of sync, then the system won't be able to even like detect copies of games you have anymore, and that's like a whole nightmare waiting to happen.
Oh, interesting. Well, I was gonna say I kind of understand that now, but I think video games are different because you have save data. You don't have save data in board games, right? Board games, you just play them, except legacy games. So that's where I'm like, okay, I get this. Like because it's also dirt cheap. So it's like I just have this. Oh, it's free. I mean, unless you want to play the beta but games, but it's like I'll pay like $5 or whatever is a year, and I have access to all these games, and I technically can play these. If I'm ever itching to play fucking Seven Wonders or Abyss or whatever, I can just pull it out on Board Game Arena.
Yeah,
get
right
some
there.
people on, let's play it.
Have you?
It's a really handy. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Have you ever managed to achieve your goal of playing everything on BGA at any point in time?
I have not, unfortunately. I'm so close. I'm the closest I've ever been because I'm staring at it right now. 7 games left. And what's been helpful is lately Wilco and I have been carving through the heavy games. Those are always the most daunting for both this goal and for my top 100 BGG goal. The heavy games, because but Wilco has been a trooper. We recently played what was it?
Signori, yeah.
Signori, which was pretty good. I liked that. So looking at this list right now, there are, and these aren't even that heavy. Like we went through the heavy games already, but these like mid-high tier. There's like 3 of those left, and if I can get those out of the way, and one of them I've already played Agricola, so I know how to play it. Get those out of the way. The other 4 are a breeze, and then I'm done. And I'll have done it, and then I'm planning to. And this podcast won't be out for a while, so maybe I've done it by now. I don't know, but I do want to make a video at some like when I do it of like I played all the games of Board Game Arena, and like these are the ones that in my sort of experience with that. And then if new ones come out, I'll still probably keep playing them just to keep it, it's kind of like a fun thing, but I'll have considered the goal complete if I stare at the "you haven't played yet" tab and it's empty. That will be like it'll feel so good.
You'll have defeated them.
I mean, like Rick, go to if you're on go on the website if you can, click on your "you haven't played yet" tab. I'm sure there's a ton.
I'm sure there are just so many.
Because I've played also all the garbage games. There's so much garbage games that me and Wilco have suffered through. Because we're like, fuck it. Let's just play these and see what happens. And sometimes you get super surprised. You're like, oh, wow, that was actually really good, even though it looked hideous. And sometimes you're like, that was one of the worst things I've ever played. And it took like an hour. But it's kind of funny. It just becomes like, and I've said this before about board games. Like, the reason why I love board games is I never regret playing a board game. Because it just is, one, it's, hey, watch my collection number go up of what I've played. Ding. And also, it's done. Once you're done, it's not like a video game where I spent 30 hours. I spent like a couple hours or 1 hour. And it was dumb. Well, that's fine. It was funny. Or I can say like, don't play that game. It's the ongoing, eternal, I guess how I always approach my hobbies is I love completing things and, just becoming more and more of an expert of like, so if people ask me, oh, like, what would you recommend? Or have you played that? I'll be like, yeah, I've played that one. You like that? You should play this. Or, that sort of thing.
You've definitely always been the recommendation friend for sure. It's always kind of been your
I love
thing.
doing that.
I'm more in the territory where like I have played I think 2,000 video games, and my recommendations are just going to be like, here's this eclectic, bizarre thing that is painful to play, but you should play it.
Yeah, which, hey, I that's more interesting to me than like, you should play Skyrim. That's like, okay, cool. Like I know, but
I did a quick unscientific count here of games that I have not played, and I came to 307. versus games
on
that
Board Game Arena?
On Board Game Arena versus games that I have played, which is 47. So there are so many games on the service. So if that gives the listeners some frame of reference here, when you say you have 7 games left to play, that's an incredible amount of board gaming.
And Rick, I will say this to you. Any games on that website, well, okay, I won't say any game, but most games on that website that you haven't tried that you want to play, I will absolutely play again.
I was going to say, it sounds like we need to schedule some time to tick off these last few games from your backlog.
I agree.
Or you can revisit like that Willy Boots game.
Willy Boots? I don't even remember which one. Which one was that one again?
It was the one with the worms.
Oh, I hated that. That was terrible. Yeah.
That was the joke.
What was the name of that game? Was it called Willy Boots?
Something like that.
I want to remember. Maybe I shouldn't shit on it. No, fuck, I'll shit on it. What was this fucking game called? I'm like, should I pull up a game just to shit on it? But I remember not liking this game, so yeah, it's fine. What the fuck? It was called Willy Boots?
My memory of the experience was you just saying like Willy Boot in like a Wilco mocking voice the whole time.
I don't. God, there's so many games on this damn site.
I'm not seeing any Willy Boots on here.
Yeah, I don't think it's Willy Boots. But I remember the game because it had really bad art. You remember that? It was like imagine Carcassonne, Rick, but with ugly art, and it's just way worse.
God, sounds
like
miserable.
It was pretty bad. I made my friends suffer through it for my goal. I'm not finding it, and I don't care at this point. Whatever. I'm sure at some point. I'm sure I'll find it later. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we could keep talking forever, but we're like we're past the hour, so I think we can wrap it up here. So thank you, boys, for hopping on the podcast again.
It's a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And just go ahead and replug. Where can we find you?
For me, you can see me tweet about video games at Mute462. I do a romantic fantasy webcomic with my husband called Jack Beloved, jackbeloved.com, also on Tapas and Webtoons. And also I've done some Mario fanfiction, one of which someone did a whole reading of, where you can find those on AO3.
All right, and Rick.
And I am Rick. You can find me on Twitter at @rip_carnage, or you can find me on YouTube. My channel's name is Such Minutiae, where I have been going through and playing a variety of old and new adventure games. At the time of this recording, David and I have been working on playing through 2016's Abduction, so that's been a very fun time.